Okay, good evening once again, class. We are both online and also physical. So that is helpful on our side for recording purposes, but not helpful for those who are away from face-to-face class. So we badly need you people to kindly come to class so that you learn more, you interact more, ask more questions, install more software, and get both the theory and the practical. So for purposes of the evening class, for the day class, we just want to do a quick recap on chapter 5, then we go to chapter 6 for today. On their side, they had covered up to chapter 4. So chapter 5 is a quick overview about data acquisition. Remember, look at the life cycle of doing the digital forensic investigation. In the first step, we said we need to first of all identify what is digital that has any storage component in it. Any hard drives, any hard disks, any flash drives, anything that has capacity of storage. Be it a phone, there is capacity. Wherever you suspect there is storage, that is what is feasible for starting our digital forensic investigation. I'll give an example, of course, a sad one. We have the director of Mulago Hospital. They call him BB. Recently, he was interdicted, I think last week. They're saying whether on whatever counts of fraud, corruption, so many counts anyway. But the mere fact he was using a computer, that itself has history in it. He has emails. That even excites people. You have mobile phones. So they just capture everything plus you as they take you in. The digital forensic experts keep with all the devices to do what? To comb them thoroughly to see, is there any evidence we can get? Because they're saying, oh, he allowed in so many private, for those who are watching news and reading, private pharmacies to come in that have crippled the hospital. But yet already we know that the hospital government has only 5% of the hospital. So it's as good as a private hospital. So there are lots of challenges anyway. But what are we trying to focus on? That when you're doing a forensic digital investigation, you're interested in anything where there is storage, because that's why you can only get evidence. So for acquisition, after identifying, the next stage is to do the acquisition. It's important as you look at the acquisition steps to know in what format am I going to save my image. Because we say we want to make a copy. An image is a copy of whatever storage device you have. And I remember we looked at one tool. What was that tool? Who can remind us? Wanji? Okay, we looked at RegShot. And what was RegShot supposed to help us do? RegShot was just testing for integrity. That is it. And we shall even look at more of the hashing. There are more hash tools that will help us to test integrity. We looked at FTK, not so, the forensic toolkit, where we created an image of a flash drive. So on creating an image, I will take you through it very briefly. Then we go to these notes and you'll see the process. You will basically understand it better when we handle the practical. Then you look at the theory and see how do they fit into this chapter 5. In chapter 5, we look at the storage formats. In what format do you want to save that image? There are advantages and disadvantages of whatever format you choose. We look at what are some of the best acquisition methods. And of course, for contingencies, that is where we describe that you need to come up with more than one image. Make a second image, a third image. In case one gets a problem, you should be able to use the other image. How do we use acquisition tools? Here, they just take us through different slide shots, but we will be able to use our forensic toolkit, FTK, to do that for us as well. So these are the three formats. By the way, these are the most commonly used formats. They're not the only ones. There are many more others. At least for Windows, these are the most common, but we'll see there is SMART and many others for different tools and operating systems. The most common formats are the raw formats, proprietary formats, and the advanced forensic format, AFF. How are they different, or what is the good and bad of each? Because anytime we ask you to list any of the two types or even the three, the question will tell you is to describe the advantages, at least one advantage and at least one disadvantage. So in the advantages, we are seeing that one, it makes it possible to write bitstream data to files. The format in which we are saving our information are in bits, those are zeros and ones. So it makes it very easy for it quickly write it. The other advantages include there is faster pass rate in which you transfer the data. One can ignore the errors in the source disk. Sometimes you find that there are all kinds of bad sectors in a disk drive. So for it, it will go ahead and pick everything, irrespective of where there are errors or not. It's good at that. Then again, it's the most commonly used tool, and that is all kinds of forensic tools always read that kind of raw format, which is our first format. However, it has two key core challenges. One, if the hard disk or the storage device that you're making a replica of its image is 500 MB, you need to have an available 500 MB in your storage device. If it's on your hard disk or wherever, you need to have exactly the same size. What does that mean? It doesn't allow for data compression. If you want to compress the data, other formats are there for you, but this one, it's good at everything, but when it comes to data compressing, it doesn't have that capability. Tools may not collect any marginal bad data. It will read it, go over it, and that's it. But it will not be able to pick out the information within those bad sectors. However, it will not stop you from carrying out the backup or writing of this bitstream image. The second one is the proprietary format. In this format, its option is that it compresses, and it allows us to, when you zip a folder, it reduces its size. So for proprietary format, it reduces its size properly. Proprietary allows us to also split it. We shall look at it, we term that ideology as raiding. You have a very big, huge hard drive that you want to make components of. If it's 1 terabyte, it can allow you to divide it into smaller bits and pieces. If you want 1 GB, you can be able to get all your 1000 GB there. But of course, it's hard work. But at least it allows you to segment them if you choose proprietary format. Then of course, it's good at, as well as integrating the metadata into the image file. Metadata is data that describes that particular image. It's at the bottom. It gives you a lot of information. When was it formed? When was the first version? When did they edit it? And it regurgitates all the information that you have ever typed about that item. So it's good enough to help us compress, make them into smaller images, and also to be able to carry out the integration. Two challenges as well, its inability to share images between different tools. This one is image specific. Remember, The first version, the raw format we've seen for it, it's good at allowing all kinds of tools to allow it share. This one is limited. Another thing is the file size limitation of each segment. Much as you want to split them, the RAIDs are limited. There is a maximum. And we shall see it here on FTK. Our maximum for this FTK is 1,500. That is it. Beyond 1,500 MBs, that means if you have 1 terabyte, divide and see how many of those small silos are you going to make. The third one is the Advanced Forensic Format, or AFF. It was developed by Dr. Simpson. Its goals are very important. One, it caters for compression, and it also allows us to basically like zipping and unzipping of these images together with the files they carry. Then again, there is no size restriction in terms of how big the size of that image file would want to be. Unlike the other one, you remember the raw format, the first one. If it is 500 MB, you must have free space equivalent to 500. This one is very flexible. It also provides space in the image file or segmented file for metadata. So you see that this covers the good of number one, and the second one, it does even better than that. We realize that it allows for metadata, just as the second one, as we had seen. It also has a very simple design, extensibility. The other thing is that it allows several open source tools. So it's not operating system limited. It allows you to open it on all sorts of platforms, which for the second, if you just got proprietary format, look at it. It says no, for it, it's limited. It's only particular operating systems that open it. It's not all of them. And it's of course, platform limited. Okay. So its extension is saved as a .afm or a .aff, which is always an open source. We'll see we have different forms of acquisitions. We have the static and the live. The static does occur within Windows. The live acquisition occurs in Linux. There are 4 methods that are used, and of course, the next slides describe each of them. We have the bitstream disk to image file. It's the most common method. It can make more than 1 copy. You remember where you want to make a copy, then go back and make another copy? Bitstream file disk to image allows you to make a number of copies because that's the contingency plan. In case one gets corrupted, you can quickly pick up on the others. Then again, it allows us to make several of its copies. Yes, you can replicate them. Then look at it, can also be used on so many forensic tools. These are several of them. Chapter 6 focuses on a comparison of the most common acquisition tools. They will look at what is good at ProDiscover, NCase, FTK, SMART, SleuthKit, Xway. There are so many forensic tools. However, it is money. I'll show you there is one tool that we're supposed to use that we are going to still use. Maybe I'll have to install it on another machine because on this machine, I'd already installed it over 30 days ago. It only has a free version for 30 days. After that, it tells you need to pay. I checked this morning, I was like, oh, per month, they say they're charging about $170. I said, this is serious. And if I'm to buy for a whole year, $799. I said, really? That's why I said I need to go back and look for these different forensic toolkits that we have in the virtual images, which can do exactly the same. But I still want to show you the other part of OS Forensics. OS Forensics is also one of those that are there, but again, it's limited. They just only give you a small bit of it to see and use. If you like it, and if you have the money in that company, you keep on paying for it. But if it's for study purposes, it's very hard to justify why you need nearly $1,000 to buy only one tool. So forensics really are money oriented, and that's why the cost of forensic analysis is not cheap. So this one is also good for handling sparse acquisition, and it collects fragments of unallocated space. Unallocated space is the same as deleted data. There's sometimes you want to hide information in some spaces and you want to keep them secretly. We always keep them in unallocated space. Then again, they're telling us this one is very good for large disks. Are we safe? When did we move here? We were still at this point. You know, I was wondering, when did we jump? I was expecting to look at all our different tools. That was the first one. The second one, a bitstream disk to disk. When the disk to image copy is not possible, here it's saying you can't copy from a disk to an image, unlike the first one. Then again, it considers the disk geometry configuration. Again, the size is an important thing. Then again, it's limited to particular tools, only NCase, SafeBack, and SnapCopy. So ProDiscover, FTK, Smart, SleuthKit, all those will not work. So you see that some of them are platform specific. The others allow for many more types of images that one can make. The last one combines both logical acquisition and our sparse acquisition. When you have very limited time, look at what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. Russia jumps into some offices in Ukraine and they suspect you want to pick critical information. You don't have time, because any time that you're there, a bomb may just land on your heads. You want to quickly pick the little that you can and go. Then that is when you want to choose something like this type of acquisition method, the logical acquisition or the sparse acquisition. Our logical acquisition will capture only specific files. You'll quickly search and say, I only want file A, file B, file C, and that is it. The rest of it may need a lot of time. Either you decide to really steal the entire hard disk and go with it, or you look out for what to do. But if you just want to do that copying of the image, it's better for you to choose the logic acquisition that will allow us to do it in small bits and pieces. It equally allows us to pick out any kind of deleted data, any kind of unallocated space that was kept in, or where valuable information was kept there. And of course, I told you, what do they keep in these unallocated spaces? The most important files, they hide them. If they know URA is supposed to come, what they're interested in are to see, are you paying NSSF? Are you paying payers you earn? Are you paying all your taxes? Are you up to date? You will find many people hide them in unallocated spaces. You just hide them. So if someone goes through and looks, they will see they're always, you will not even see them. You only see the drives and you're like, okay, this is all that is there, not knowing there are other secret drives that they have hidden. Every time you want to have access to them, you unhide them. It's also good for large drives. So this one is very flexible. The other thing, it works very well for carrying out the migration for file mails, as well as for RAIDing servers. You remember, we shall look at it at the end of this chapter. For RAIDing of the servers, it's more or less the splitting of them. Of course, it allows for data compression. It allows for use of digital signatures. These are part of the encryption mechanisms, meaning that at least it does much more than what the others would basically be able to do. Okay, here, of course, we focus on contingency plans where we said it's coming up with a second copy. You don't only come up with one image, make duplicate images. And another thing to focus on here is that you need to prepare to make sure that you encrypt the disk such that as it's being transmitted, or in case information is there, keep it safe such that no one will actually peek into it. Encryption helps us in preserving confidentiality. You don't want any person to quickly break in. While when you use the hashes and the reg shots, those help us to prevent what? To detect integrity. So there are different items that help us to preserve the CIA. If you remember our chapter 2, we said that for a secure system or for secure data, it must have confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So how do you preserve all these different items? In carrying out acquisition tools, they're telling us there are lots of advantages. Okay, I would want to see if they have a question. Oh, Gordon is telling us that for them, they're only seeing one slide. Aha, you're in trouble. Gordon, next time come to class, please. Face to face. The class will tell you that we are missing you so much. Let me try and see. I see how many. I see 1, 2, 3. I don't know. Maybe let's open this one and we see. They are only on the first slide. Sorry. Yes, just keep us checking. Keep on checking so that we see if we are actually there. I'll need to also keep logging on here. Otherwise, we may think we are teaching the online class as well, and yet we are just alone. Okay, so we are saying that there are lots of advantages of acquisition tools. Okay, now I see it is now changing. At least I'm also monitoring it on this side as well. Acquisition tools have advantages in terms of we can make acquiring evidence from a suspect's drive very convenient, especially when using hot swappable devices. Swappable meaning they are removable. A hard drive, a flash disk, a diskette, a CD-ROM, it makes it very easy. The disadvantage is that you must protect the acquired data with a well-tested write blocker. Especially this is for Windows. Look at our title up here. It is an acquisition tool for what? For Windows. If you're in Linux, you have no problem. With Linux, you don't need to have a write blocker. And we saw what is the importance. Who can remind us? What is the importance of a write blocker? That question always comes. It must come, I tell you. It has to come in all forms, eh? Yes, please.
To avoid editing the device.
That is very correct. It helps us to freeze the information so that no one is able to add any information to that disk. Otherwise, people can always keep adding on, adding on. That's why you want to freeze it as is, stay hold. I'll give you an example of a write blocker. Now, of course, you know forensics deals with a postmortem. Hope you know are dealing with postmortem of information that happened. In a real postmortem, when someone passes away, what do they give that body to keep, to freeze it as it is? What is that write blocker? It's called formalin. Have you heard of formalin? Yes, they inject the person with formalin. What are they saying? Please, all the body cells freeze, stay as you are. Do not allow the body to start decaying. If you don't give it formalin, by the time you pick and transport the body up country, oh, it arrives when it has so many flies. It's very sad if you look at some of the, especially if the patient had cancer and they were giving the person chemotherapies and all, that body decays in a very short time. So they have to make sure they carefully treat it thoroughly to make sure that there is no form of decay. That is what our write blocker does. Freeze as is. Do not add, do not delete, do not edit. That's why that write blocker, however, it only works with Windows tools. It's equally very important for us to also appreciate that, yes, in that chapter 4, there were a lot of these cables we looked at. the PATA cables, SATA cables, SCI. Those are just for connection. Look at the hard disks we have here. What are they using? It's just a USB drive. But for the others, you'll find they have different ports. Today, what is most modern is that you'll find a USB port with a multiple port reader, that it will attach the PATA on the external, the SATA, because hard drives or even computers these days are very slim. This one is still very thick. It can have a capability of maybe even attaching some SATA and PATAs. But remember that the PATA has how many ports? It has 40, 20 at the above and 20 below. The SATA has how many? What about the SCI? The SATA or the SCI has only 7. So you need to know how, at least when they give them to you, you should be able to identify and say, this one that has 7 is only the SCI or the SATA cable. And the PATA is the old one that has so many of them. Okay. Steps to update our registry when you're using either Service Pack 2. What's the importance of a registry? A registry, by the way, keeps track of all volatile information. It keeps track, it's just like a register. It keeps track of who logs in, who logs out, what did you do. So making a forensic backup of this register is extremely important, especially if it's like on a server. It will give us a lot of history. It will help us to sit in analysis phase, to sit and understand who are the authorized people, who are the non-authorized people. And sometimes, you know, for every thief, your 40 days come. And I'm telling you, when your 40 days come, do not even waste time hiding. Have you ever seen police when they get to arrest someone? The moment you're resisting arresting, they will beat you. They can even go the extent of shooting. Because you're fighting with them, they will hammer you thoroughly. But if you hand yourself in properly, you say, we go, we go, we go, we go. I'm telling you, they will even respect you. But you start saying you want to run, you want to do this. So when your 40 days come, you relax, hand over, don't even bother to delete. You just know, God, my days have come. I better go in for my 10 years or how many years. And that's why whenever you're given whatever position, you are held responsible. You are held responsible for whatever decision. Even if you become the boss, whatever kind of wrong decision your subordinates make, they're making it on your behalf. Like if you go to find this BB in the what hospital, whether it was not him that made decision, they say, please, for as long as you were the head of the institution, on your head, you must carry the whole burden. And of course, they start the process. Click here, then go to next, go to next. Very kind, so many ways. Here, looking at Linux. If you're looking at Linux, that's where we said we'll use live acquisition. Static acquisition is in Windows. And that's why we have to do the freezing. Linux automatically, it freezes the information. You don't need to have a write blocker. It has so many tools. People may want to just go straight and do for us an acquisition, because telling you about using ProDiscover really, yet you don't have this tool. Again, you have to buy it. These tools are not free. We don't have it. It's better for us and use our simple tools that we have. So we looked at our forensic toolkit. We want to quickly go and look at our forensic toolkit. Please, for those who have picked the forensic appliance, there are 2 of them. There is the access and the forensic appliance. So both of them will be able to help us do the work well. This is the Access Forensic Toolkit. And that's how it does appear. Let's share with the team that is online. Okay, so this is our forensic toolkit. We want to carry out an acquisition. We already picked a particular one. I want to carry it out for this flash drive. When we want to carry it out, we click File and select Create Disk Image. Look at the options that are available. We have the physical drive, logical drive, image file, content of a folder, or phenical device. Oh, that is, for example, CDs, DVDs. Okay. The very first one, physical drive, works when you're carrying out for a flash disk. That's when we use physical. We said we use when do we use logical? 1G. For a hard disk, that's very true. When you want to make a second copy, you already have an image. You want to make a copy of that image, you choose that third option. The fourth one, when you want to just choose a particular folder, you remember when we said you're in a hurry, you just only want to go pick out a particular folder. Now, that is when you will choose our fourth option of the contents of a folder. Then, of course, for DVDs and CDs, you will use this last option. So we want to use it for a flash disk. That's why we choose our very first option, which is our physical drive. Next, it's important for us, it's telling us here, please select from the following available drives. Which type of drive? I can see mine is here. It has picked, of course, can see so many others. The hard drive is here, 1 terabyte. However, I only want the one of 500 GB. Is that the one? You know, there are many drives, eh? I think it's the one. This one of 320. USB. We are in trouble. Actually, I'm even suspecting it's this one. 320 is smaller. Okay, we finish and we see the only thing it will do, it will take more time. So having picked our source, we now need to see where are we going to get, what are we adding? Do you remember the formats we were talking about here? What type of image do you want to create? The raw format, the smart format is also for Linux, the EO1, the AFF. Which one do you want to choose? We choose also, but we're in trouble. 500 GB is big. We chose 320 GB. We shall reach somewhere and we cancel anyway. We proceed to next. Here it asks us, please create a case number. Call it anything of your choice. However, we advise you also add today's date at least, so that at least you can recall it happened sometime in March. That one you will not forget. Evidence number. Of course, you already have a particular case. Immediately they arrest someone, they open for you a case number. So we are consistent with that particular case number that we are handling. Unique description. Here we can just mention it's a flash disk and mention the type if you know it. The examiner, you type in your names so that we know who has created it. Any other notes you would want to fit in here, you feel free and type as many notes as you can. It's just for identification purposes. Now, where do you want to create that image? Choose. Give us a location. We can choose on the desktop. You can choose in a particular folder. By the way, a particular folder may even be better, so that you can easily, let's make a folder and we call it image, and today's date, 9/03/2022. for purposes of ease of trace. So once you're ready with that, look at this part here. Are you seeing the fragments? The fragments are the RAIDs. Do you want to divide it into smaller components? Since it was very big, you can say 320 GB, okay, let me add it. However, when I want it to just come as one whole group, we put 0. I don't want it to split it into several other groups. And of course, they're giving you further explanations here. In case you do this, 0 means none, 1 means fastest, up to 9 means the smallest. And that's why you see when you look at the end of chapter 5, they divide the ratings all the way from 0 to 9, up to 1, 0. Okay, if you want to encrypt it, you choose encryption. If you're not interested, it's okay. Image file name. We don't have much to call it apart from today's date, but again, we can be innovative. When you're done, you click finish. Then it starts the process of creating for us this image. As part of the process, you need to verify. Verifying allows us to test for integrity. That yes, that particular file you want to test for its hash values. You want to test for its MD5. You want to test for its SHA1. You want to test that yes, it's actually as intact as it can be. We start. You see the time it's going to tell us. Are we surprised? Are these 2 hours? We will be fine. Anyway, it can go on. So that is how we carry out the acquisition process. And of course, your output is in a particular format. You will open it and you'll be able to see, and you can see the time that it's going to take. It will tell you how much time it will take and elapse. When it finishes, it will tell you it's done. At that point in time, meaning that you've made your copy, you can make a second copy, save it somewhere else, ready to take those copies where? To the lab and do your analysis. That is what acquisition does for us. Are we together? Allow me to go on to our next chapter for today. But let's just look at 5 and see if we've exhausted a number of key issues there. Here they're saying if they're using ProDiscover, it's when they would give us, let me first share with them what we are seeing here. Okay, so if we are using ProDiscover, you'd still need to do the basics again and follow through until you reach the finish. I notice online, we've left them alone. We are seeing something, they're still on the other slide where we began. So most likely need to share another slide. Where is it? There are quite a number of them. It's only one. Let's see. Okay, so you will find that you just more or less follow the same steps, just that you have different items. The most important thing you need to see, what do you want to choose and where are you going to save it? What are the case numbers? Do you want to split it? And of course, the steps are very self-explanatory. That's why the theory together with the practical makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it's just telling us, remember the slide that was allowing us to type in our names, the name of the technician, the image number. Do you want to compress it, yes or no? Do you want to put a password, yes or no? Do you want to, all those questions are what you would want to make. Of course, it's saying if it is for if you're using a USB drive in Windows, of course, you need to have, first of all, write blocked it. If it's Linux, it's okay. It quickly write blocks it and does the testing. You write block it before you do the acquisition. Unfortunately, we don't have the software because remember in write blocking, we said you have two options. You either use the software to write block it or you use the hardware. We've used exactly, this is the other forensic. We are using the Access Data Forensic Toolkit Imager, where we clicked File, Create Image, and we're able to go on and follow our instructions. The steps involved here, they're trying to document them as to what you're able to do. That's where they're telling us our options were here. Physical drives for flash disks, logical drive for hard drives, image files when you're making a second copy, content drives. Also, we saw there's a last one, a fifth one for CD-ROM drives. It asks you in what format. We've seen them. Is it RAW? You need to know one thing with RAWs we've seen. Really, that one doesn't allow you to compress. If it is 320 GB, make sure you have enough space. And by the way, you can create an image also of your own hard disk. But that means you need to have twice the amount of space or an equal empty space of it. If you just create your images, do you have any question for us, please? Please ask. We saw the other option. Do you remember it? Where we had the contents here. Content of a folder. You choose this one. The content of a folder will allow us to pick from a particular place. Are we together? So you only want to focus on one folder or one particular file in a folder. So that's the one you will select. Okay, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, Ma will keep on driving. Interrupt anyhow it is. Put up your hand. Okay. Here it is the source and the destination and the file name. Those ones we saw. Where do you want? And this is where we currently are, where it's showing us the space, the time, and it's busy doing the forensicness. It's creating that image. That is it. Once it makes it, all the hard work is for the analysts. The analysts who will sit and read file by file. It's very painful. You can spend nearly, not even 1 week, not even 1 month. And you have to document, remember. You open this, how many did you find? 50 file sizes, this. You began with maybe A to Z. In A, there were 300 files. Read each one of them because you're searching for valuable information. Okay, here it's trying to look at the issue of validation. In validation, the issue is to help us. It's the most critical aspect of forensics. It requires us to use any hashing algorithms. But remember, during the forensic process, we tick that option that please do the verification and validation for us. So it will use the pre-built tools within the forensic tools. There are different techniques. We have the CRC32, MD5, these are the most common ones. We have SHA1, SHA2, all the way to SHA512. SHA stands for Secure Hash Algorithms. Okay. They now go to talk about validation from the perspective of if you're using Linux, exactly the same. Just that you see one thing that makes Linux unique, they have lots of DDs, DCF, LDD. DDs, D alpha, I don't know, something. Really in their validation, they use a lot of DDs and they're doing a lot of checksums, which are more or less the same as if you're using Windows. The most important thing is to know what are you exactly doing. For Windows validation, it has no inbuilt hashing algorithm. Tools for forensic is need for a third-party utility that can be used to do our hashing. For command computer forensic programs, they have that inbuilt one. However, for the others, you will need to have an extra one on top. For the raw format file image, like the one we selected, it does not contain metadata. You remember we said, if you're interested in looking out for data about data, then you better choose the other formats. Choose the AFF, choose the proprietary, choose any other formats because raw format is very basic. You now go to raiding. And that's why they say that the size, the problem is size. Size is the biggest concern. How big is what you're doing a forensic all about? Imagine if you're going to do a forensic for a server. That means you must equally have a bigger server or a cloud space that is extremely big. And raiding is the process of splitting it into smaller, manageable parts. RAID in full is redundant array of independent disks. So RAIDing has different formats all the way from 0 to 1, all the way to 9. And of course, here they just describe for us briefly what is good about it, what is happening. We usually use 0 when we want to keep it intact as one whole disk. You want to split them into 2, do the RAID 2. Into 3, RAID 3, 4, but each of them, you need to know how many times you want to split. It's simple mathematics. This is an example of what raiding does. You have your whole set of information. This is your whole image of what you'd want to make an image of. However, you want to split it into smaller manageable disks. That is when you'll have to use the raidings. Sometimes we can set for you a question and we say, Mr. So-and-so has an image as big as maybe 128 kilobytes. They want to split it into 4 different RAID buckets or RAIDs. What will be the size of each RAID? You just divide it. Simple, because each of them have to take equal portions. So it's just showing us how and where it keeps them. And really, these are silos showing where it saves each of these information. RAID 5, RAID 6, all the way to RAID 10, which is the 10. Okay. There are questions you need to ask yourself when you're also doing the raiding. How much data storage is needed? What type do you need? Is it the 0 all the way to 9? You do the mathematics and divide from the size you've chosen. Have you chosen the right acquisition tools? Can the tools read forensically copied RAIDs? Because remember, it's like you have a whole jerrycan of water and you go pouring it into little small 5 liter jerrycans. That means when you're reading, you have to also read into those small components and keep ticking off. If you have the bigger RAID into one whole image, you will have to read small bits and pieces, but systematically make sure that you cover everything. So you may find that maybe sometimes it may be easier to know I finished 1 and 2, I'm now remaining 3 and 4. Or I finished the 6, we have only 7 and 8 remaining. So it's up to you to see what works best for you. Can the tool read split data? Because it may have to pick some information from here, some from there. Can it be able to make this information? Imagine if it splits data from one particular file into smaller bits. Can it be able to do that? These are questions of concern you should be able to ask yourself and look at those capabilities of the tools you're going to choose. And of course, there are so many vendors like the way we are going to see in chapter 6. There are several vendors. Are you going to use NCASE? Are you going to use, I don't know, Technology Pathways, ProDiscover? Are you going to use guidance software for NCASE, X-Way, runtime software, R-Tools? What are you going to use? There are so many of them, we can't exhaust them. So it's good for us to know what tools and what are the capabilities of these tools. You can decide to also use remote network acquisition. In remote access or network acquisition, that means you're doing it away on the LAN. You don't want to actually go to that particular place. What if they throw a bomb there? I will send you some videos. There is one lecturer somewhere here in Uganda. And what is he doing? His wife is from Ukraine. So you can imagine. He actually, by the time the war nearly broke out, his wife had just traveled to check on the parents. They had to see how to quickly evacuate her. So now that she's back in Uganda, he said, I have to pay back these people. And he is doing a lot of hacking of tools. He's working day and night to see how we can hack into Russian databases. So today I called him. Yesterday, I think he worked up to around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. sending us messages and screenshots. I was like, you better send me some of those tools and I see if I can give my students. I said, my God, he's already saying, what if they trace him? And they trace exactly that he's a university lecturer in another institution. Won't they fire him? He's worried. I said, okay, if there are free tools, you can say maybe you're teaching your class. But of course, everyone is very eager to find out, have you succeeded? He's like, no, I need to first do some network analysis. Otherwise, you're able to see several packets. You don't want to just, like what he's doing network sniffing. You don't want to pick onto wrong packets. I say, you're in trouble then. He says, no, I have to help my motherland, Ukraine. So what is he doing? He's not going physically to carry out the actual thing right there. He's doing it remotely. He's making use of the software. That's why I was bringing that example for us to understand this remote network acquisition. You don't need to always be at that particular premise. No, just make sure that whichever device you want to do an image of, make sure it's in power and it's on the internet. All you need are the IP addresses. Wherever you are, you log in and you proceed in identifying it. Do your acquisition remotely and you're good to do your analysis. That happens also in cases where you find that you have a young team of enthusiastic people in the forensics team who are on ground. However, you want to get consultation from some experts, maybe in FBI somewhere, to help you use some of their better tools that they have. So your own is to just make sure you go to the place and make sure it's switched on, do the logins and everything, installation of the remote tools and everything. The person is able to do it and information is still taken as that kind of big image. And they handle the analysis in a very short time. Okay. ProDiscover, again, what it can be able to do, it also has those capabilities. I need to look and see what is the team telling us here in the chat room. Here I want his number. Anthony, Chizito. Where? But I've promised you, I will get you the tools. I will get you the tools. One of the tools he was using, let me quickly look for it here. It was solar something. These people will finish us off. But for him, he feels that is the only cyber warfare. And that's why if you get into any kind of war, physical, get ready for the cyber I know he's even using free tools. These are losers. Free tools can't do much for you. The real hackers use paid for tools. They really use paid for tools. You invest about $600 or $1,000 to get rich in a short time. But again, I discourage you, it's stealing. The one he's using is called SolarWinds. SolarWinds. Oh my God. Okay. So that is all about this acquisition. Whether you're using ProDiscover or Linux, you need to install it. You need to have trusted CDs. You need to have a server because you're picking it over the internet. Once there is no internet, forget about it. You have nothing. You can mention that you're doing something. It's just like telling students, let us study online. If you don't have access to data and internet and a mobile phone or a gadget, there is little that you're doing with yourself. Because if you're using NCASE, again, it will have different components. Really, this part bore me so much because there is no actual tool. You're just saying the theory of the tool. Theory, show us and we see. Show us and we see so that we can be able. John, why are you asking for his phone number? I'll keep you posted. The moment he succeeds, I'll even send the video and screenshots because he has now been working for 3 days. We really want to see what he's going to get. Remember, in chapter 4, we looked at if you're having FAT files or NTFS files, very important to know what kind of files one is using. I rest my case. They end up telling us there are so many tools. But as I told you, as many tools as they are, the free versions give us very little. And again, they're limited. It's like they are giving you a small test. Then thereafter, have you ever bought grasshoppers by the roadside? They will package for you small in like a small what? In like a small pack to just test the goodness. Then they say, okay, give me another one. Give me another one. Yes. So that is what these free tools help us. They don't give you the full-fledged version. But at least with this version I've shared with you, you will be able to have it in a virtual environment. You have studied before using this virtual environment of Oracle, and you'll be able to do much more with it. At least it's open source. These ones are just basically explaining what each of the tools do, not helpful. I rest our case. Okay, we'll want to make sure that we still maintain our time within these tools. We'll see if the tools have something important for us. Some of them may not be very helpful again. Yes, go ahead with the question. Ask, please, go ahead. Pardon? The methods of acquisition. Haven't we seen them? Types of? Yes, all the way from 0 to 9. Are we together? Those are the different types. Methods are the same as types. You know, when you're setting questions, you set them in all kinds of forms. Okay, would want to go on to our chapter 6. See where our image is. It's still creating. You can't believe it. It's true, actually. It's 2 hours, 40 minutes. Honestly, we will cancel this one. There's no added value. One is not for a case that we even are managing, but we are just trying to show the process. Please, I've cancelled it. I've lost interest in that case. Okay. Okay, so I would want to go on. These people are on fire. Can you please do a list of the different apps we are going to use? I already shared it. It's already online. You can go and download it. I can still show it to us by end of this class. There are so many you can use. I think we have about 10. And by the way, I will alert us that we teach the same content. We are 2 of us teaching this content. Lists. You know what happens every time we go to slideshow? We leave these people on the first slide. For us, we've moved. They have not moved because I'm monitoring here on my phone. Okay. So we are exactly teaching the same. Mr. Lomwa is teaching the same with our campus in Jinja. Same test, same exam. You remember how we use system analysis and design and set it? We're using the same notes, same textbooks, same tutorials. So do your best as you'll do your reading. I need to see where we've left our online team, because I see there are actually 20 of them online. Oh, it has now finally changed. Okay, so we are saying that by end of this chapter 6, and it's nothing than looking at what are the various tools. Really, the power of this chapter is in seeing which tools. There is one table, somewhere on like slide 25, that has a comparison of the capabilities of the most commonly used 3 tools. At least for us, we now have one, that is the Access Forensic Toolkit. And even in those forensic kits I've given you, also Access is there. So in our objective, be able to explain how to evaluate the needs for computer forensic tools. In terms of if they give you an opportunity, go to the market and buy for us what forensic tool you'd want to use. What should guide you? What is your marking guide? Like now they give you money, say, Teddy, here is 3 million. Go to the shops and buy for me a computer. What are those items that you should have on your checklist? Your hard disk, is it an HDD, an SDD? Is it, I don't know, a terabyte and beyond? Is it a touch screen? Is it, you will have a variety of components. And that's where the evaluation component comes in. It should be able to give us what are some of these key core items that you want focus on. So we shall evaluate those needs. We shall describe the available forensic tools. This one, I don't know if they're up to date, but you know, every day you sleep, you wake up, so many forensic toolkits are actually being developed. We can't exhaust all of them. We look at the most commonly used. We will list some considerations for computer forensics, hardware tools. We will describe the methods for validating and testing these computer tools, because we're just going to compare them and see which one has what capability. Again, it goes back to your pockets. Isn't that true? If you're given money and your parent tells your guardian, I've only given you 500,000, go sort yourself what kind of computer you're going to get. Some may choose to buy a good phone, not so, and say, mommy, that money was too little. I chose to get a very good itel phone or a very good, I don't know, Infinix phone. But at least it met my capabilities. Like, but we wanted a laptop. Said, this one starts for maybe 700. I didn't have the 200. So these are things we want to look at. We will describe the available tools. We will list the considerable tools available and also describe the methods for validating and testing our forensic tools. So when evaluating our computer forensic tools that are needed, we need to look for the veracity in terms of what are the capabilities, how robust, how flexible are some of these tools. We need to look at what operating system does it use? Is it on Windows? Is it Linux or Unix? Those are important things we need to consider. The file size is very key. The scripting capabilities, the automated features, the vendor's reputation. Do you understand when we say the vendor's reputation? Why? Let me give you a very simple example. When you were choosing a university to go to, why did you choose Makerere University? Vendor's what? Reputation. Some may say, I'll give an example. We are having, tomorrow I'm going to be on a panel of a PhD student who's doing their final defense, will be in our boardroom here. The student has been on that PhD, it's a shame. Even before I began my master's, when I saw the book, I said abomination. I said, really? Since 2005, 17 years. I said, what kind of image? You're discouraging our students. I said, no, Mr. Dean, these students need to go. That there is no way, 17 years, rubbish, lazy person. So our vendor's reputation is important. You don't want to buy a product from somewhere and they'll ask you, which university is that? That you go abroad and you say, I've come to do my master's. But when you mention Makerere, actually they'll tell you it's the only university we do what? We know in Africa. Some will tell the others are trying, but we know the oldest, 100 years, yes. That is part of what I would say a vendor's reputation would have. There are particular vendors. I would say if you're buying any hard drive, be it even any hardware, like if you're buying a TV, there are some brands, when someone mentions over, like, that's the one. What are some of those brands? Wanji? So, by the way, there are two Sonys, eh? There's one with a Q, that one is the Chinese Sony. There is another original Sony which has the O, yes. Then there is, I don't know, look at, there are so many of them. There is, I don't know, Samsung, then there is LG, then there is, they will tell you, don't you hear the brand name? It speaks volumes. It's like if you're buying a laptop and you're buying a Dell, Dell will speak for itself, not so. They will tell you, someone is saying no. A Dell never fails. And I don't know if you've tested it. However old it is, I have one old Dell, very old. But I'm telling you, I tell people it can never fail. When today I can bring it, open it, and it will start. Very old, it has this our cable here of BBC. Yes, but I tell you, it is going nowhere. The newer versions, Toshiba's, what they always have their issues. It's like when you're going to buy brands of vehicles. What are the brands of vehicles? Gentlemen, help us. Which one? You mention it, they say, hey, that one, yes. Which one? Ford, Benz. Which one? Subaru? Toyota, yes. So, those new ones. If you're buying a vehicle for an old museum and you talk about a Benz, they say, now you're talking. They will know the value of that vehicle. So when you're buying tools, the same thing. You go to the market, it's good for you to read all those details. Don't forget these days, there's a lot of social media marketing. At the bottom, there is a lot of feedback. 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, and people are very genuine. They will tell you this one is very fake. They will tell you the honest truth. So it's very important that you pick out on lots of that feedback as well. So keep in mind what application files you will be analyzing. The types of computer forensic tools that you're going to need to attach to it. What hardware forensic tools does it support? In the types, does it support only command line applications? Does it support graphical user applications? I imagine you by now, Sadia, you know the difference between these two. Command line, what is the color of the interface? Black. That you have to code and code, it's line after line, you're not seeing no image. So the kind of forensic toolkit you'd want to get, you should be able to see it has icons. You open it, it has a normal interface. You can read, yes, it has a menu bar, there is file, there is edit. Those are graphical user applications. You can easily, command line, you're not in a hurry for it. You want to look out for those that are commonly used to copy data from a suspect's disk for any image file. And of course, they should be able to give you some trial versions. Use for a while. If you don't like it, it's okay. If you're happy with what you've used, then go ahead and make payments. You want to look at what tasks can it perform. In that whole forensic process, you will see that all the remaining even chapters, really we can say, are all about explaining the steps involved in the forensic, digital forensic life cycle, that methodology that you follow. Does it, of course, cater for the major 5? That is the acquisition. Can you do the acquisition phase? Creating your images of all sorts of kinds. The validation and discrimination or verification. Can you do the extraction? What about reconstruction? And finally, reporting. Those are the 5 major capabilities that you'd expect any forensic tool to be able to do for us. Then they go ahead and explain each of these components one by one. Acquisition, this one we have seen, not so. We've seen acquisition. All we want to do is to make a copy of that original disk. And that copy we make is what we call an image. There are different copies. You can make different types. The physical data copy, logical, the kind of data formats, the command line acquisitions, graphical user application, remote acquisition, verification. All these we can comfortably say that these were covered in chapter 5. We just did a quick recap of. So as you go through, you want to see, is this something familiar in the steps, or is there something that is a little strange? In acquisition, still they're saying there are 2 types of data copying methods, the physical and the logical. This one we've seen. Physical is used for the entire drive and even it's for the flash disk. Logical is for the hard drive. It allows us also pick for parts. And of course, we say there's even one which allows us to pick particular folders of interest wherever. In the formats of the disk acquisitions, you want to find out the types. Is it the raw format? Is it the proprietary format? Is it the AFF, the advanced forensic format? You want to choose because of the capabilities we saw. The other option, etc. Those are things you'd want to consider. You can only view the content of a raw image file from any hexadecimal editor. You know, once you've copied your image, you've created your image, you now go to WinHex, we shall see it. Anything which has HEX, WinHex is the one that will help us to read any hexadecimal editors, to read them in the ABCDs, convert them to the normal language that you're able to understand, or the 012s, the bit language, to bring it to our normal language. This is an example of those hexadecimal language. And this is what you're supposed to be reading, by the way, in analysis. Yes, you're reading that small language and converting it. But again, the tools are there to allow us, do what? Do the reading. Because this is the format in which we have our image. When you open it, but you need to open it in the rightful editors to be able to read and make it into paragraphs that you make sense of. So you want to look at all those capabilities under the acquisition. In addition, can it help us to create smaller segments? What is that process called? RAIDing, not so. That methodology is what we call as RAIDing. RAID 0, RAID 1. Can you break them into smaller components? Are all computer forensic acquisition tools, do they have all the methods for verification? All these will help us in comparing the original disk with the image that we have. We've lost the team. This seems to be for chapter 5. 5 or 6? For 6, okay. One of the things you need to look at as part of the acquisition is the last part of acquisition, which is the validation and discrimination. And they're explaining these capabilities. By validation, we ensure that the integrity of the data is being copied. And that's where we look at, the next slide, we look at all kinds of integrity checks using the encryptions. Discrimination of data involves sorting and searching through all the investigation data. So the tool should allow for these capabilities as well. They go ahead and give us the sub-functions of it. In hashing, again, they give us the same types of hash values. The CRC, we should be able to see CRC somewhere in full. Version 32, there is the MD5, there is the SHAs, that is the secure hash algorithms, 1 all the way to SHA 512, and of course, there are newer versions of more hash values, the filtering, analysis, and of course, here they give us the National Software Reference Library. This gives us a list of the known file hashes. So you check through and see when you're doing your validation and discrimination, which of these, at least if it can do the basic, which is MD5 and SHA1, but of the two, MD5 is the most commonly used. They're giving it to us here. This is the National Software Reference Library. It's an international approved library that lists out which are the various accepted tools for hashing. Okay, and look at all these items they're giving us an example of. This is an image. They're giving us that, of course, the eyes are kaput, but I can see the extension. What extension is it? JFIF? I'm telling you, or JPEG. That shows us that yes, it's an image. It's a JPEG. If it's a TFIFF, still it is an image. So it will still appear complex like this, but this will give you a clue that what you're looking at that point in time is an image. Ronald, where are we? Ronald, we are saying that we are just at the step where we're just looking for what tools you want to have. And we're saying that it should have all detail needed at the acquisition step. So we're just looking at what happens at the acquisition step of what we had previously done. Okay. The tool should be able to go ahead and of course give us any more message errors. Basically, is what they're showing us. If it's a message error on an image, it should tell us. If there is no response at all, no guidance, next, no, fail, cancel, finish, all those are very helpful in showing the progress of how far one has gone. Here they're giving us an example of the forensic data.doc that is opened as an image viewer, if you open that in an image viewer. So know what kind of extensions you have and make sure when you're going to read them, you must have those programs there. It is one of the tools we will see. In that tool, it focuses on reading, telling us what is the extension file name. Once you have the extension file name, it's easy for you to be able to know what program it is. Go install it and you're able to read those images. Some of them may be CAD. Have you seen the CAD files? Or look at those formed by Illustrator. They have all kinds of file extensions. So you can be able to use a forensic tool, you run it and it will tell you the extension name and you're good to go. We shall cover those as well. Very small tools. It should be able to support the extraction. That is, in extraction, what do we do? The recovery. You're recovering data, and of course, there are so many tools, even RegShot helped in doing some bit of recovery. The other tools that we shall be able to see that do recovery, we shall see autopsy is one of them that is most commonly used. And there are so many other free tools that can help us to do this data recovery. Because you want, first of all, dig anything from any small parts, wherever they are hidden, for us to do our analysis very well. It should be able to show us the data views, the keyword searches, because this is what happens in the analysis phase. You're searching for any keywords, you're decompressing, you're carving, you're decrypting, you're bookmarking. Keywords help in speeding up the analysis of the investigator. Remember where I told you, you can spend a whole week searching one particular file, reading, printing, because you're doing it hand in hand with what you are handling. It takes a bit of time because you're looking for facts. It's like when you're doing data mining, and that's why if you have the search component, it makes your life very easy. So if you can't see a file like this with this search component, here, see where search name. If it is not there, that means it's very manual. It's going to tell you to have to open one by one. And yet remember, when you went to court, you asked for particular keywords. And so many other components here. Data carving, knowing what images are they .bmp files, GIF, JPEG, PDF, Word, Excel, etc. You should be able to know what kind of data items you have. In addition, you should be able to break any passwords. When you're recovering and there are any passwords that are there, you should be able to use all forms to break them. One of them that used to break is what we have as the password dictionary attacks. These ones are very easy. We will also look at particular tools we use for picking passwords. Then there is the tough one, which is the brute force attack. That one you have to carry out those attacks on your device, especially when you find that their Word documents and their password protected. Remember, they will not even give you time. Go talk to the criminal. By that time, the criminal has even lost interest. They don't even remember what password. Please just go ahead and do whatever you can. So you have to use all kinds of tools to make sure that you break into that information. Try to reconstruct this information. In reconstructing it, you're trying to recreate the suspect's drive to show what happened during the crime or during an incident. Imagine the crime the person may have had. Like now, I still use that same case, unfortunately. If they say, there was something, like now I was just reading this afternoon, they were saying there was some fraud that took place for a particular project of 28 billion. So you're so sure something that has billions in it, you start searching for your keywords, billions, and you're trying to reconstruct the story. From the time government gave these people a particular project, like I'll give an example of the Women's Hospital. They gave them a project, and I was talking to one of the very old professors who participated in writing that initial proposal. They said when they were writing it, it was supposed to have had, 12 or 16 floors. And money was given to them for all the floors. How many floors were made? Only 8. How many were pocketed? So you can see of 28 billion, if it was given, you're interested in following up that whole storyline. From the time money came from whatever government or whether it was a loan from World Bank that you have to pay back until all our generations have to pay back these loans. You want to follow up and see the procurement. How was it done? How was the bidding done? That is the story of reconstructing that particular storyline. Until where you are, until where you have evidence and you say, this is where we can see the fault is. And that's why for this kind of crimes, it's your word versus the evidence they pick. If you don't have evidence, they may even just release the man after some few years and say, or months or weeks, and say, sorry, there is no evidence to pin you. So the sub-functions again will have types of images. I don't know, there is someone who is disturbing us. Yes, Namugenyi Noelin, you better mute. Otherwise, we shall send you out. Okay. So these were the different types we had already seen: the disk to disk, disk to image, partition to partition, image to partition. These are different forms of reconstruction. There are several tools. You'd want to see what tools is it able to support. SafeBack, Snapback, NCASE, and different platforms, only Windows or Linux for reconstruction. Reporting. Are you able to have a complete forensic disk analysis examination? And thereafter, can it create for you a report? We shall see. When you complete the whole process of the forensic and do the analysis, there is a component of creating a report. It will create for you the report which is readable based on what you've picked, what you've searched, what at the end it will give you a whole report for you to print out. You study it, it will give you all, look at the sub-functions that report has. Log reports, report generators, etc. And it will give you everything that you're going to present where? In the courts of law. Remember, as I told you, forensics is an in-between. It's an in-between the computing post-mortem side and the courts of law. It is us supporting the legal team to provide evidence. Or even they can decide on his side, he can say no. He employs his lawyers to get forensic people on it and say, go and do an investigation on my computers and anywhere. Go, you can do an investigation to exonerate the person and say, you know something, I do not want to take responsibility. Actually, we had a council that we report to. Can we have the university council to hold that responsibility? Go and arrest them. Actually, all decisions were made by that council. That is what governing bodies take responsibilities of. The wrong, the good, you bear it on your heads. You're like, how did we miss this? So you have to be very careful whenever you're doing your work. Never make sole individual decisions. You're gone. You sign off your death warranty. You need to make sure that the entire team, you've followed all the protocols, you've followed all the steps, you have not missed any of them. That is when they may even say, okay, we give you a less kind of penalty. And say, I think it's the system that failed. By the time the project was written, it was written in the early 1990s. When did the money come? After 20 years. So inflation of products. A bag of cement by then was about 10 or 12,000. Now a bag of cement is 30,000. So you have a lot you will say that you will be able to provide details of. So the procurement people have to submit a lot of detail to back up that whole reporting process. Here are the tools. This slide is quite small, but it's okay. All it's trying to show the functions of all the tools and what we expect vis-a-vis, they're comparing three most commonly used tools. They're looking at ProDiscover Basic, Access Data Forensic Toolkit, and the guidance software NCASE. They are comparing them and seeing what are the capabilities. The first part is acquisition. We've mentioned what happens in acquisition. What items do you expect there? Next, validation and discrimination. That is the hashing, the filtering, analysis. Then extraction. We've talked about what happens. Then you look at reconstruction. All this disk to disk, image to disk, partition to partition, all these types. Reporting, can it create for us log reports, report generators? So you go comparing. So they went comparing all of these three tools and found out the following. If we can see where we don't have a tick, that means that that tool does not cater for it. Let's look at ProDiscover where there are gaps. ProDiscover does not support command line processes. It's okay. Who's interested in command line today? You, the programmer, as long as you have that, the graphical user interface, you're good to go. Then look at the other one. It doesn't accept remote acquisition. That is very difficult. What if we hire some experts in Nairobi, experts in South Africa, experts in the UK, in the US, in Australia, wherever? That means you can't use ProDiscover because it doesn't have that component. So you say, okay, that's its limitation. If that is the kind of big case you're going to use and you had different people carrying out the acquisition, automatically you eliminate it. You go to the next one and say, which one? Even the next one doesn't. Look at it. Look at that line here. Let me come and we annotate here and we see in our line. We are just looking at this line here for remote. Here it's saying no, it doesn't support it. Even also access doesn't support the remote. It's only guidance in case. And they're saying that is one of the key core. That's why I've even given it a star. Look at hashing. In hashing, yes, it allows, but you see, access does double hashing. Look at the tick. Then also look at also ncase, double hashing, meaning it does it better than ProDiscover. You really see ProDiscover has very few components. Look at extraction. It has gaps. All of these are gaps. Are we seeing all these gaps? Even here, reconstruction, okay. Look at the reporting here. It also has gaps. It doesn't have our log reports. Even this one, see it. It also has some gaps here. This one has only the last one. There is no report generator. However, it can give us our log reports. So you'll see if you're to compare these items, which one would you choose? It goes back to your money, but if it comes to functionalities, this is the first one, not so. This one takes first priority. This one we can see, this is the second one. Access. Access can help us. This is number 2. Then the third one is ProDiscover, it's okay. So we can see the ones, this is the first, the second is here, the third would be that option. So all they're just comparing within this chapter, the capabilities of each of the tools. How would you advise someone if you're on such a panel and they're telling you, here is money? For us, they can even tell you, money is not our problem. What we want is the functionalities. Then you say, okay, you now can be able to talk from facts because comparisons have been done. Okay, Ronald is asking, what do you mean by star star? I'll ask you still, if you go back to any website and you find it rated as star star, what does that mean? It is very good, excellent. I'll keep giving you an example of e-commerce and what usually happens in e-commerce. In e-commerce, for example, if you're using any of the tools, or even if you're using SafeBorder or any other tools that you have to buy products, they always ask you to rate the products, not so. Give us stars, even rate the driver, rate the rider. If the person was a reckless driver, 0. I said, really, my heart was where? In my hands. And that's why if you sit on such a border, please tell the person, do you want me to double the money? Please, my life is only one. Don't make any kind of funny decisions that you're swerving, nowhere will fall off. Yeah. You know, yesterday I went by our little market and we found a sad mood. I was wondering what's happening. I was good at plating here at that market. And you know, these competitions that come, I don't know, Radiant or I don't know, Movit or something. So she had her name on radio that she was the lucky winner. She jumped onto a border, rushing quickly to go and pick her prize. Lo and behold, did she arrive? Ginger Road, they smashed her. All her intestines just fell outside there. The border man ran away very fast. And then at the end of the day, the person never. So when you see those rankings of star, unfortunately, of course, she had not used any of the safe borders. They would be able to track, but with that one, no one can be able to track that kind of person. So those extra stars mean that those are super, they are excellent in doing those capabilities. Okay, yes, Ronald is reminding us, even also WhatsApp calls. When you make a WhatsApp call, they ask you to rank it, not so? But even, you know why they start ranking it? To just be able to build the confidence. Of course, for Africa, they're not about to start charging us. Majority of us live under the poverty level. They better sell our information for free, it's okay. But I don't see people in the next few years still paying for it. Unless if you're very cautious, you want yours to be very secure, not, then you'll go and pay the $1, $5, $10. There are other items you'd want to consider on the tool. For example, flexibility, reliability, expandability, all those lities. Keeping a library of all older versions of your tools. Because you know, with software, if you have an old version, it may not be able to open something in a new version. It may not support it. Can it be able to create a software library that contains older versions of the forensic utilities, the operating systems, and other programs? So there are so many other functionalities you can consider. Our question that would come here is that, what are some of the characteristics you would consider when you're buying any forensic? And of course, expect us to give you one storyline. Mr. So-and-so invites you for this and says, you're the lucky person to do this, they've given you a job. As part of your consultancy job, come up with the criteria that you're going to guide management on what tool they would need. And why would they choose this tool over the other? Computer forensic software tools. We mentioned something about graphical user interface versus command line. Command line is highly used in Linux. Graphical user interface is usually used in both Windows and in Linux, really. And of course, we shall look at ours that we install, that you're going to install as well, that I've told you is also available in that lab. By the way, that lab has very serious rules. You don't just appear and say, I'm going into practice. No, they send you packing. They always tell you, you must come with your lecturer. So we may have to see, and I will have to call Alex Motil in charge of the labs to please allocate for us our time so that at least we'd rather even have our classes where? In that lab. So that may even be the only time for you to use some of those tools. But I encourage you, please, buy a laptop. Sorry, we've learned that there are so many thieves, I'm telling you. This COVID season has been very tough. They have stolen so many students' laptops. We sympathize with you, but please don't get tired, buy more. Yes, please buy. I will tell you, also on my side, thieves attacked us at home and took away all our laptops, about 8 of them, with all the smartphones. We nearly died of a heart attack. I'm telling you, brand new laptops of 15, 20 million. We're like, oh my God, these thieves. But we got over it. You still have to buy, you downgrade, but you have to buy something. So try as much as possible, especially if you're doing forensics. You need these tools because immediately you finish your third year, you will start making money from using these tools. So please, any tools they give you, install and back up on the cloud. Command line, really, why should I be comparing command line versus graphical user interface? Really, is it something I need to be doing now? No. The thing is that with command line, it is not flexible. You need to be very good at programming. You're not good at it, it will look at you, it is waiting you to tell it what is the next step. Graphical user interface is very interactive. You're able to know where you click, you're able to know the next steps. You can read. Command line, it will wait for you because it will even expect you to do what? It will expect you to even have crammed the steps. Have you seen like the way you do coding? You first of all run your dry code somewhere. Does it work? This one here, if, okay, else, then okay, I think it can run before you now go to your command line. That one is even harder. And that's of course talk about DOS. MS-DOS is actually still there. It used to be an operating system, but now it's just a small program. That was purely command line. In Unix here, they're giving us SMART. SMART is also one of those that is command line driven for Unix size. Really command driven. Helix. Helix is one of the easiest suites to begin with, especially if you're using Windows for live acquisitions, whether it's in Linux. And for those members, yes, the last time we were doing some of this, some of you have Mac computers. Some of you have Linux operating systems. I encourage you, go an extra step to look for the tools that work there. These versions have given you up both for Windows and Linux. Online, you may look for others which are equivalent. We have Autopsy. Autopsy does exactly what the forensic toolkit does for us. Some of them, you can also use the Sleuth Kit. The Sleuth Kit is a Linux forensic tool. It works like the Autopsy. Autopsy, just like our Access Forensic Toolkit, is a graphical user interface that allows us to quickly click File, Create Image. But if you're using those command lines, you have to type in, I don't know, ms-dos.something /something, and you need to recall a number of those commands. They're just giving us how Helix looks like and its menu. And of course, they keep on going on to different kinds of different tools and the capabilities. Because all this chapter is blowing about, this is command line. Look at how ugly it looks like. You need to have printed these lines for you very well to be able to recall. What does this one do? What? Actually, you need to have its full guide. Otherwise, you may not be able to recall all of its steps to do our forensicness. Of course, we've said the simplified ones are the graphical user interfaces, which are easy to use. They have multiple tasks. There is no need for learner older operating systems, even for ease of teaching. No one needs to teach you how to use it. Once you install, you follow the procedures, and that is it. Disadvantages is that they're usually big. You need excessive resource requirements. Like the way I told you, one is 12 gigabytes, another one is 5 gigabytes. So if your computer is very slow and old, you will see them. Even some of the computers, some of them were not able to run this together with Windows. But if it's fast, if it's bigger, then it's okay. You can produce inconsistent results. Of course, the moment you do not have enough space, and of course, it's not fully installed, expect it to be malfunction. You can create tool dependencies, and those are very big challenges. You'll find that it can work on one tool and not work on the other because they keep colliding in what tools they have. But you pick those which are compatible for your software. And of course, they're reminding us here about hardware. The technology changes rapidly. Every other time, new technology comes up. So the challenge comes in with your budget. This time you buy a tool which is 1,000 US dollars. The next year you buy something of 5,000 US dollars. Next time, 10,000 US dollars. You find that the vendors are always adding in more capabilities. And that strains your budget. IT is given a minimum budget. And that's why you need to have very good people to lobby for you to see if you can get good money to do your work. Of course, here they're giving us again, they're reminding us of our items here. You must have enough stationary hardwares on your side. Of course, big servers with big enough space. This is our forensic. This is our right blocker. This one inside here with our laptop. This one here is our lightweight to help us to read some other more devices. You need several items in the forensic workstation, especially if you're to create and you say, we have to write maybe a project and we say we want to come up with a forensic specialized lab. As a country, there are very few. The other day they were donating, I think, one to police, but now they find that even they don't have people who are even trained to run them. Police available labs, we've seen the government lab, again, is only one. You find in the whole country, we have about 2 labs, not more than those. And so you will see that there is really need that even for organizations, by the way, that's why security is important today, tomorrow, and forever. Because the hackers are always improving and getting all kinds of things. Here they're basically telling us what you would need in your forensic lab. Advantages of having some items, advantages of not having some items. Again, what we advise you, keep open source if you can't afford, because you will not strain the whole budget of the organization and say, for us, we are going on security. You won't, they will tell you, please, for that one, try to also get another alternative tool. And here, of course, they're trying to show us some other vendors here by Fred and Fired ID. Of course, this one is a very big, strong server that can allow us to do forensics. And of course, if you have one like that, that makes it even faster in running very big sizes of images that you'll pick from wherever. Right blockers must always be there. We saw these. Software, hardware. See examples are here for us. PD blocks for digital intelligence. That's the software, and look at the hardware. So they're just basically trying to show us for the software one you install and the hardware ones for right blocking. These are for Windows. They have too much repetition, I'm telling you, that sometimes you say it's better for us to do our hands-on. And we go on again, validating and testing your forensic tools. Yes, you should be able to test. It's like if I tell you, go and buy a computer, they should be able to switch it or not so. You should be able to open it and even check around the capabilities. You're testing it. You want to run and install some programs. You just want to test how speedy is it. You look at the RAM, of course, it will tell you its capabilities. Is it 16 GB? Is it 8? Is it? Some will tell you it's 8. However, we can upgrade it. Ask if the motherboard even accepts that kind of upgrading. Sometimes you may upgrade something. When it can't, it's not upgradable. It's like seeing someone who is very old and they are denying that they are old. Have you seen some of those? I keep seeing some of them on social media. I don't know, so-and-so has gotten, I think, a 5th husband. And I'm thinking, really? When you're nearly having even grandchildren, you should retire. If you're not capable of handling a home, retire and put that off. Focus and do your business. Yeah, you can't keep on the knob and you're saying, I'm forever young. And there's some ladies, please keep with your age. Even if you get to 40, mention it, there is nothing they will do to you. That is it. Don't start saying, I'm 16. On our forum of hobbies and OGs, we still see some girls who are in 40s, but they keep saying, happy birthday, how old are you? 16. You're like, yet you have a kid who's 18 years old. Also, you learn to tell the truth. Of course, don't forget to go to NIST. NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. It gives you all the basics. Which ones are ISO certified? They even give you the criteria that you're supposed to follow. So every time you get stuck, always go back to your original mother company. That is the one in the US, in the Department of Defense. They will always give you the list of what is expected. Which one is ISO what certified? This one, the moment you're using a tool which is a trial version, please do not try on your organization. You may end up losing your job because you're just using a trial version. Let them come out and tell you, and in writing, because someone may come later and say, this person's work that they did in forensics is flawed, it's 0 because they used tools which are not ISO certified. And they will nullify all the work you have done. And that's why they'll wonder, did you do the right full certifications? Your lab must meet the following criteria. They are giving us criteria if you're to come up with a lab. Because that lab that you come up with must be ISO certified. You will listen to, we should soon have a session with the directors at NITA that will take us through the certifications needed for a particular lab. And they will tell us the certifications, the government lab of forensics that they have under NITA, and what certifications they followed through. Very expensive. They need to have it in a particular set of buildings, this thickness of, I don't know. They tell you all kinds of capabilities that by the time you move from a 1 tier to 2 tier to, they also have ratings in how they rank those institutions. So whatever lab, if you're interested in it, you go and look out for NIST. It gives you all the minimum standards. Then you see how you can build gradually. And these are kept items you will have as working capabilities for your work along the way. We also have what the NIST also gives us something in addition to the National Software Reference Labs. It will give us what is accepted under our reference data sets, what are accepted and what are not accepted. You would want it to be, you would want it to actually be accepted fully. We need to get winding up. These my PhD students are calling me, they have a Previva today. For another defense on Friday, they have to finish and come and support you people to study and complete. Validation protocols are also there. We use different computer forensic examination protocols. And of course, you'd want to use those which are command-driven or graphical user interface. The editor tools, which ones do you use? The hash values, which tools do you use for your hashing? We shall look at some of these on Friday. Our computer forensic tool upgrade protocols, still, they should be able to do the testing, disk fixing. Look out for different versions and upgrades. Remember, any software you have should be able to allow you to have updates and upgrades and patches. In case some parts are not working well, every time you get onto internet, they should be able to send you a newer version. We rest our case for the day. In chapter 6, we've been able to look at how do you create a business plan for the best hardware and software for forensics? What are some of the capabilities in terms of the tools and the 5 key roles: the acquisition, the validation, extraction, reconstruction, as well as reporting. When you're coming up with your lab, it should be able to be certified. We've seen NIST is there. Also, the National Forensic Library is also there that gives us its tools. Hardware and software tools must always be compared. Money versus the capabilities. Do you want command line? Do you want graphical user interface? Those are decisions you choose. Of course, command line is cheaper because it's more complex. The forensic hardware still should be easily customized, should allow you to have customizable tools, commercially available, viable software which has upgrades. Of course, we saw if you have right blockers, both hardware and software should be there for us as well. Are you using Linux or Windows? If you're using Windows, have all its necessary tools. If you're using Linux and Macs and everything, have its necessary graphical interfaces. And of course, finally, you should be able to test that tool. There should be at least some testing period for you. You like it, you proceed on and make your payments. Class, have yourselves a nice evening. So we shall meet again on Friday. Friday 2 to 4. Would want to use that particular time to keep doing our what? Our hands-on. Wow. Are we going to have it face-to-face as well? Class monitors, do you want to link up and we see if we can go to the lab? And also, if you can be allowed, I will have to ask them to come with your laptops. You know, they don't allow bags in that lab. But if I come there and I check the bags myself, because students pick all kinds of materials from the labs, I'm telling you, and we have to sit there with the lab attendants to ensure that people don't carry away the mice, don't carry away the keyboards and all of that. Okay, so we shall see you on Friday. The earlier, the better. Again, for those who remain online, you're going to suffer this time. Please appear. Have a nice evening, class. Okay, they're asking us when is the test. When are you going to have the test? Wanji? Not this Saturday. This Saturday is very busy for me, both morning and afternoon. It's kaput. What is wrong with Sunday? No, by the way, do you know this test? This test is online. You will come with your gadgets and we space you properly in the room. Yes. I invigilate you online. Yes, why are you refusing? Why are you refusing? By the way, you don't even have time to even start one. You're fighting with the internet. Strictly 1 minute per objective. If there are 60, exactly 60 minutes. But you know, the moment you sit elsewhere, people always have problems. Their own never starts on time, ours is ending. But if you're in one room, you put up your hand, I re-enable for you immediately. Do you get me? You want to copy? Or you want me to print out and you come and you suffer with our hard copies? I'm telling you, you better come with whatever gadgets you have. The scope, even up to where we are, is okay. Yes, everything is done. Really. What is mainly remaining are basically the hands-on. Are we together? Because as you realize, we follow that life cycle. Where are we? We finished acquisition. Next, we are going to, we've done now looking at different tools. Looking at analysis, what are you analyzing? In what? On the actual analysis needs to be the actual analysis physically, not so. We can do the few basics which we can go through quickly and we say, let us do it immediately on our gadgets so that you're able to see the actual analysis from an image you've also created on your own. And of course, you'll see in these folders, there are also tutorials for you to practice on your own. There are already created images that you can even create, like hard drives. They call them data sets that you can actually create images for and keep on and follow through and answer questions on your own. So practice is extremely important. May God bless you. We shall link up and we see when we have our paper. At least not this Saturday, not this Sunday. Let us look at next week and we see a Saturday or a Sunday. We shall need maximally 1.5 hours. Yes, maximum. Those who finish, I'm able to see so-and-so has finished, you walk out. You finish, you walk out. Those who are stuck remain there until they finish. You go when you know you have your 80, you have your 40, you know your 20. God bless you, please.